and welcome back to the Girly Girl Bookworm. So today we have our discussion for May's Reese Witherspoon pick, which was The Henna Artist, written by Alka Joshi. I'm probably not saying that right, but sorry. So this month, this was Arch Book Club choice, and I had a hard time with, it was weird because, like, I bought it and I was like, I'm going to read it right away, and then I just kind of, like, wasn't in the mood for it, and then I picked it up one day, and there's a giant character list in the front, and I instantly was like, no. So this book was really intimidating to me, and I really didn't know much about it going into it, which I think is probably what helped me kind of be intimidated. I don't typically read historical fiction that is set in India, so I think I was nervous that this was going to be really dense and really over my head, but it actually wasn't. So this is about our main character, Lakshmi, and she has run away from her husband, and she has run away from her family, and she has kind of made a new life for herself. It's been about 13 years since she's run away from her family. And she's kind of made a name for herself being a henna artist in her city. And one day her husband actually tracks her down and brings with him a sister that she didn't know she had. And basically it's kind of her ups and downs of what happens, of her trying to be this famous henna artist in her town, and the effects that her sister has coming to be with her and live with her. So it's hard because that synopsis is super duper vague, and I feel like there's so much more to this story that's not said in that synopsis, but at the same time it wraps it up as well. It's very much a character driven book where there was a lot of points where I was like, is there a point to this book? And I feel like it was just kind of supposed to be like seeing her slice of life and seeing her journey, and like the rise and falls and things. I did like the writing style. I think that the writing style was really easy to read. I picked this up in one night, and I read 100 pages, and then the next day I finished it. So it reads rather quickly. Some of the chapters are really long, and then others are shorter. I obviously preferred the shorter chapters to a really long chapter. I liked learning a lot about the culture. Something that I did not like, though, was the fact that she really tried to immerse you in the culture by using a lot of the language, which is great. And there's a glossary in the back, which again is great. But there were words that I was like, I want to know what that means. And I would go in the back and it actually wasn't in the glossary. So sometimes they would have it and sometimes they wouldn't. And then there were a lot of terms, even like on a single page, where like, if I gave into it, I probably would have been in the glossary like 90% of this book. But a lot of the times I just kind of went with the context clues, especially because some of the terms in the glossary were just kind of loosely described. For example, there was like this dessert that they were talking about, and I was really curious what it was similar to. And you look it up in the back, and it just says a milk dessert, and you're like, well, what does that mean? Or they were talking about a rickshaw, and I wanted to know what a rickshaw was. I know it's a mode of transportation, but I wanted a more visual perspective of what this was. And I would go in the back, and it had a rickshaw walla, which was simply a person who drives a rickshaw. And I was like, okay, but what's a rickshaw? So, like, there were, like, some inconsistencies there that I think I would have liked that a little fleshed out a little bit more. We are following Lakshmi for the entire book. The prologue is written in the perspective of her sister, Radha. And for me, I feel like what would have helped this book a little bit more is to get Radha's perspective. Because she was going through a lot of things in the story too. And she kind of, at one point, kind of had like a personality shift, like really fast. And I couldn't tell where it necessarily came from, and I feel like if we had seen her perspective, I would have understood why she just, like, instantly switched on us. Rada's a 13-year-old girl, and it was interesting because I felt like she was not portrayed as a 13-year-old girl. Like, there were times where she came off like she was 5 and really young, which makes sense. Her mother kind of was not present in her life, and her father was a drunk, and I understand that. Like, so she probably had to, like, raise herself, so she was acting like a 5-year-old. But then the next time around, she's acting like this elite scholar, and I just was like, okay, there's got to be an in-between. So I think if I had seen her perspective, I would have been able to understand her a little bit better, and I would have liked that a lot more. It is really hard to talk about this book without spoiling it because of the fact that so much of this is, like, watching her journey. So I think I'll leave my non-spoilers section there. Overall, I did enjoy it. If you're waiting for a rating, I'm probably giving this book, I gave it 4 stars, but it's very, like, a loose 4 stars because there's times where, like, I felt like I was really nitpicking it and went, maybe this is like a 3-star read. But then I was like, but I was really invested in it, so 4-star read. So I feel like I'm in between a 3 and a 4-ish. And I feel like it's just one of those books that doesn't have a set rating for me. I'm not somebody who read it and loved it. Like, I've seen a lot of reviews of people who loved this book, and I definitely liked it, but I definitely didn't like some aspects as well. So it's kind of between a 3 and a 4. Probably closer to a 4, but also close to a 3. I'm so all over the place with my thoughts on this one. I apologize. So yeah, at this point, I'm going to jump into some spoilery talk. So if you have not read this book, I wouldn't recommend continuing to watch until you've read it. If you've read it, stick along. I'm going to put it down because it's starting to, like, irritate my finger. So yeah, let's just get started in some discussion points. Again, I was talking about the portrayal of Rada, and I found it so weird how she was acting like a 5-year-old at points where she, like, didn't get her way and she wanted to throw rocks at people. And then the next thing you know, she's literally talking Shakespeare and reading all these books. And then her baby, you saw, obviously I understand how Ravi was able to make her think he was in love with her. She was 13. She's very impressionable. But I didn't like that they were trying to say that the movies impressioned her and that, like, Kanta had something to do with it. I don't think that Kanta had anything to do with the fact that this girl went and had sex with some other man. But whatever. But I just found it so interesting how she was so set in her ways of, like, he's going to be mine and we're going to get married and all this. And then she finally, like, so I understood why she wasn't going to have this, like, abortion. I 100% understood that. But then, like, when she agreed to have this, like, adoption, but then she was secretly like, I'm always going to keep him. Like, it was just, like, weird. Like, I want to be in her head so badly because I felt like I was so lost with her ups and her downs. And just seeing her in the last scene when she was taking care of the baby and hiding the fact that she was feeding bottles because she didn't want Kanta to, like, be with her son. It was very weird because, I don't know. It was a really uncomfortable situation. And that, and, like, how heavy this book talked about, like, basically woman's choice. I understand that that is obviously a way of thinking, and I just feel like I would have liked to know that that was going to be a heavy focus from the start, just because it's not a topic that I typically would like to read about. Like, I don't get enjoyment out of that. I understand that it was probably just, like, trying to show us what it was like to be a woman and really have no choice, but it was really heavily overdone, in my opinion, because we saw it in multiple aspects. I think if it was, like, a aspect of the book, I wouldn't have minded, but because we kept seeing it in different ways of, like, she was wanting to do it with her 13-year-old sister, She was doing it for herself. She was doing it for the prostitutes. Like, it just felt like it was, like, so overly done and so overly hit me in the face with it that I didn't appreciate it. I also really didn't understand why she kept being so angry with her husband for abusing her. And I'm not saying that, like, he had any right to put his hands on her. But I thought it was really bizarre that she was like, I hate him because he keeps hitting me and beating me for not being pregnant. Yeah, you weren't pregnant because you kept basically aborting your own child. So basically you were almost like welcoming abuse because you didn't want to have, you wanted to be able to choose when you had a child. It just, like, didn't make sense. Like, he wouldn't be beating you. Not that he had any right to beat her in the first place. Like, I don't know if I'm not wording this right, but, like, it just felt like I don't understand why she was angry with him when she kind of was bringing it upon herself. Like, this is sounding so terrible. I don't mean it like that, but I don't know. It just felt very weird how she was, like, still angry with him so many years later, especially when he had changed his life for the better. I don't know. That was really bothersome. Also, I wanted to know why he was at the train when she left. I feel like I don't know. It was very, I wanted more about that too. I feel like that needed to be fleshed out a little bit better. It was interesting. Now, Malik as a character I thought was really interesting as well because he was another one who I couldn't really gauge very well. He definitely sounded like a poor boy that she kind of took under her wing and probably had no family or anything like that. But he was another one where it was like, how old are you? And he goes, I prefer to be 8. But acted really old as well. So I feel like I was struggling really hard with these characters who you couldn't gauge their age for, because one minute they'd act like children, like they were supposed to, and then the next minute they were acting like adults. And I don't know if that's the point, if that was the way the culture was, or what, but I found that really interesting, and the fact that he just basically was able to up and leave at the end with them, I thought was interesting. In the whole relationship with the chef, and I was like, what does this have to do with anything? I would like to have Malik's perspective. I think that this book would have been more balanced if it had more perspectives other than just Lashiki's, because I feel like she was just very, like, narrow-minded in what she needed to do to be successful and what she needed to do to maintain her lifestyle. But yeah, I don't know. This book was very interesting, to say the least. Like, I feel like that's why I'm so wishy-washy about it, because it definitely had its moments that, like, I really liked. Like, I loved getting to see her house. I liked to see her artwork. I liked to see how these women really felt about her. Her henna work was really interesting. Oh, another thing that I didn't like, and that scene where she, like, owed the oil guy money and all of a sudden he was, like, basically going to rape her. Like, I felt like we were finally, like, she was already at her pits of her lows. I don't understand why that necessarily had to be a part of anything. I did like her relationship with Samir. She did kind of make him out to look a little bad at the end, but I feel like that relationship, she kept saying how, like, he just wanted to get her in bed, but they had been together friendly-wise for a decade. I don't know if that was necessarily always his plan. Like, I don't think his plan was to get her in bed. I think he just liked their companionship, but that could be totally wrong. But I thought that he handled everything the way I would expect from this time period a man of his power to react. So I wasn't angry with him when he acted the way he did about his son getting her daughter pregnant. It made sense to me. It was a reaction that I understood. So I don't fault Samir at all for what went down eventually in the end. I really liked how he was really there for her through the thick and the thin. And I think that was probably also why he reacted the way he did, was that they had such a friendship, and they had such an understanding, and then for this to kind of like happen, I'm not surprised that he reacted that way. But yeah, if you read this book, please let me know any of your thoughts down below. If you're going to include a spoiler, just make sure that you put the word spoiler in front of your comment so that way nobody gets unintentionally spoiled. I'm excited to see how the next month goes because, like I said, I feel like the books that I'm excited for are the books that I don't like, and then the ones that I haven't been excited for, I've actually been able to take some things and be really interested in it. So this has been such a toss-up of a test. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this, reading this month with me. And let's see what June has in store for us. Bye, everybody.